Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever and whenever you're watching us. Welcome to another episode of Conical Supremacy. My name's John Noreko, and we got a great show for you today. And I'd like to take a second to introduce my esteemed colleague and guest host, Mr. Doug Tornquist. Hey, Doug, how you doing today, man?
Good, John. Nice to see you.
Back at you, man. This week we got Steve Oberheu, right?
Oberhoy.
Oberheu, my fault, and the author of the new Roger Bobo book, and he's going to be our guest for the next hour, and we're really looking forward to this, man. And I want to thank you very much, Doug, for lining this whole thing up. Way to go, man.
Well, it was a no-brainer. I got this email that this book was out, and I thought, oh, I'd heard about that. And I instantly placed my order, and it came in the mail, and I started reading it. I just finished it this morning. It's an incredible book that was needed and necessary. You know how interested I am in legacy and history and context. And of course, you know, Roger is, there just aren't words for what he did for us and what he's still doing, the life he led, the frontiers he, you know, busted down, all the things that we take for granted today that would not have happened with, you know, had Roger.
I totally agree with you on this, man. He was one of the guys, I think, who actually shined a light on what we do in a great way. And I don't think it ever happened before. Do you think?
Well,
besides Bill Bell or Harvey, but
well, I think, you know, there was this great, if I may interject, I think there was this great sort of wave of progress. There was the great Bill Bell. And then we had, you know, Harvey Phillips, who just, you know, commissioned all these works and kind of helped elevate the tuba as a solo instrument. And on the opposite coast, we had, you know, Tommy Johnson and Roger Bobo, who were, you know, doing their, I mean, Tommy was, you know, obviously setting a very high standard with his playing. Roger
Absolutely.
Pursued, you know, the Eastman School of Music and European orchestras and was, you know, the best at everything. I mean, I still think his recordings have not been, I don't think anyone's done it better, to be honest. I mean, his recording of The Craft stands as the monument and the standard.
Quintessential.
Yeah. So, and the works that were written for him, the works that he premiered, you know, I know Harvey's goal was to make the tuba a solo instrument, but I think Roger sort of showed that, you know, it was completely viable with concerto appearances and, you know, even appearing in a medium as popular as television on The Tonight Show. You know, there's just no one before or since who achieved that level of fame and notoriety. And, you know, part of it was the time. I mean, the world was open to something new, and Roger was there. But, you know, let's face it, it was 100% the man who did it.
I agree with you totally,
yeah.
Man. Hey, before we get Steve on here, let's talk about what we did this week, because that's usually part of the show. And both you and I had a pretty good week. What were you up to?
Well, it was sort of a Star Trek week. We had a session for Picard and then one for Star Trek Lower Decks. And that's always fun. It's great music. And, you know, it's just really awesome to get out and play. And then a little bit of teaching. You know, I had some students come by. We're off season now, but they're still busy and doing things. And some cleanup around the house. Now that it's finally slowed down, I can get back to, you know, kind of organizing things. And so that was my week.
It's always nice when the semester ends, right, man?
Yeah.
Well, I had a really busy week this week too, man. Disney is plugging along. The band's sounding good. We got a lot of people. You wouldn't believe how busy it is. I mean, Monday was like 55,000.
Huge.
It was ridiculous. But we got a rehearsal in this week, and then Saturday. Just for those of you out here, we're taping this on Friday right now. But tomorrow, I'm doing a concert, a live jazz concert with some of my favorite people here in LA.
Good for you.
And I'm really looking forward to it, actually. Two of the finest improvisers, I think, of our time are going to be on the band, Ron Stout and Kai Palmer.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, and I've got my regular rhythm section, so I'm feeling pretty good. And ticket pre-sales sales are going really well, so I'm stoked.
And and where is that? What time is it?
That's going to be 8 o'clock at the local 7 hall.
Oh, yeah,
The union at local 7 is using their hall as a performance venue. And for those of you out here that watch the show, that's where we do a lot of recording our live music for the show here.
It's a great room.
But they started running a series a couple years ago called the Orange County Legends of Jazz, where they would invite certain individuals who have been playing in the Orange County area for decades and kind of showcase who they are and how they play. And for some reason, they asked me to do it. So
Wow.
I'm pretty stoked, and I'm really looking forward to playing with these guys. It's been some of them, it's been before COVID, so I'm really looking forward to it. And it's going to be 2 45-minute sets, and we have, I think it's the OSHA, which for those of you out there who don't know, that's the Orange County School of the Arts Jazz Ensemble, will be playing at 7 before us. It's a really good program, man. I mean, my hat is off to everything that they do down there at Local 7. They're really trying to make things work as far as a live venue is concerned, and it's very affordable. So, and there's a liquor license. So, good news.
And you didn't ask me to bartend.
No. Oh, no. Although, you are wonderful. Well, hey, let's bring Steve in right now, and let's talk about this book, man. What do you say?
Let's do it. All right. Today's guest is the esteemed tuba player and now author, Steve Oberheu. And as I said, this book is just out, Love Songs and Pirate Songs, The Life and Music of Roger Bobo. Steve, congratulations on finishing a book.
Thank you.
That is a huge
Thank you so much.
undertaking.
Thanks.
When did you start writing this book?
Oh, about 3 years ago, just over 3 years ago. I got well, it all started one day with a Facebook post that I put up about, one of my favorite albums. It was, and yeah, I happened to write about the Los Angeles recording of The Planets, and it was long post, and whatever. I was just looking for any reason to just go off, so I did, and then shortly after that, I get this message from Roger saying, "Hey, I really like that post. Would you mind take over writing my biography?" And I was like, well, how can I say no?
Exactly.
I really was just like kind of, yeah, I was really honored that he asked, and, yeah, apparently there were a couple of guys who had started at one point, and then, but then nothing had happened. So then Roger was like, well, I like your writing, so would you do it? And I was like, that sounds completely and utterly crazy, but I think it's the right kind of crazy that I need in my life right now. So, yeah, so then so then he sent me a bunch of notes that they had gathered. He sent me a bunch of pictures that he had, like actual physical pictures that were still like, and you'll see them in the book, like the ones of him as a kid, and the one of him and Leonard Bernstein and so forth. Like those were all like actual physical pictures that I held and like made copies of. But and then the a transcription of the interview that they had. So from the transcription of the interview, I got a general idea of kind of like the things that he sort of wanted to talk about. And then that was done by Travis Scott. It was the guy who started off with that. And then he graciously sent me, his, the transcription of that interview, plus some work that he had done on his dissertation, which he did an entire dissertation about, music for Bobo. And anybody that's interested, check it out. It's out there. Contact Travis. I'm sure he'll hook you up. interesting, deeper discussion about, the music itself. So, but anyhow, so I read that and kind of consulted that and went through that, and he did some excellent work on that too. And yeah, that kind of, helped me out a little bit as I was organizing my thoughts for the book.
Did you put it together with a series of interviews, or was it your own writings and recollections, and then you would submit those to Roger, or was it sort of video interviews?
It was a combination of a bunch of different things. Lots of interviews. That was the number one source was just conversations between me and Roger. So I flew down to Oaxaca in March of 2019 and spent a week there. Rented this little place across the street from him, and it was great. We hung out every day and just talked about everything. And I, had my little iPhone there, recorded them all. So I've got all the audio still. And great. Then spent a week there. And then from that, started, writing the text there. And then from there, came back to Winnipeg and then just combed through the interviews, spilled it all onto paper. And then we called back and forth. We had several calls back and forth. And then, to kind of clarify the stories and double check some of the facts and, kind of, cross-reference some stories with what I have heard from other people I've talked to. And then, so then we kind of honed it down and whittled it down. And then I put everything down into the page. And then I'm like, okay, what do you think? He's like, okay, yep, that's it. Maybe let's not mention that. Okay, we would delete that. So,
Steve, I was going to ask you the process of whittling that down. Was that more of you looking at what was important, or maybe discuss your process as far as what you felt was important, what wasn't important?
Sure.
Or was that all Roger's doing?
Well, it was all in consultation with Roger. Certainly there were some things that I felt were more important to, at least mention. There were some things he did not want to discuss, and you may find this interesting, having already read the book, Doug. One of the things that Roger would not mention to me was his father's name. So when writing the biography of somebody, generally you ask, oh, where were you born? Who were your parents? And then the only thing that Roger would say to me, it was nothing nice. So and he would not even mention his father's name to me himself. I had to ask his sister, Peggy. So, and then she was the one who gave me the name of their parents. So, and, but, having read the book already, I'm sure you can, imagine the tension that was there.
Well, I've been in Los Angeles so long, and Roger is so famous that I've heard many versions of these stories, and it was nice to read about them, and it was extremely familiar to me. Oh yeah, I've heard that story. Oh, that's what happened. Oh, there's a little more to it than that, but you're not going to put those details in the book.
And some of those details, we had to do a lot of discussion about how much to leave in, how much to backpedal, how much to not mention.
Oh, sure.
And then, and particularly when it came to substance use, that was something that he was very understandably sensitive about, and me, like when I was writing the book, kind of talked about my process. I'm a big fan of rock star biographies. Like that is one of my favorite things to read. The ones that I find the most interesting are Duff McKagan, Dave Grohl, Slash, Anthony Kiedis, those guys, Nikki Sixx, Motley Crue, The Dirt, The Heroin Diaries, intense reading. And they spared no detail into just like how depraved it got sometimes. But also, but the thing that I think a lot of people, and also in those books as well as in this one, it's like, well, okay, like all the craziness happened, but how did you get out of it? How did you make it through? In considering what in those rock stars biographies and kind of, to me, Roger to me is kind of one of our first rock stars. He is a tuba rock star. So I was like, okay, like, he lived it, like he says, I played the movie. So, yeah, one of his favorite phrases ever, but, yeah. So much, in fact, that it earned the title of a chapter, but, yeah, there's a couple stories in there about, some of his, Hollywood studio experiences. And I'm sure you guys have probably heard a few as well, maybe even experienced a few of them, but, anyway, yeah, but I was just like, hey, apart from just, whatever, things happen, hard stuff happens. How do people make it through? Yeah. And that to me was one of the interesting things in the story that I felt had to be in there. I'm like, yeah, he did all this incredible stuff, but also, there's all this other stuff too. So,
sure. Well, it was endemic in the community, 60s, 70s, 80s out here. We're pretty wild, and it was too much for a lot of people. Some people didn't make it out. So that's part of Roger's heroism, really. And so what were some of your favorite stories from the book? I mean, I found it kind of uplifting. I've always thought of Roger as an uplifting figure.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, and I think, just the perspective that, the perspective that he shared with me, kind of where he is now, for example, the story about receiving the news of his son's birth while he was on tour with the Los Angeles Philharmonic. So that, like, as a parent, like, I was like, wow, okay. Like, somewhere in Italy, there he was in Rome, and just gets a telegram saying, your son has been born in Amsterdam. Wow. And then, but if you ask Roger today, he'll tell you, he was like, I had it backwards, should have been there. That was, and that's, yeah.
But it was
that's one of them. And then also the story about Julie Christie. That's kind of a peculiar one that I thought was like, wow, what are the chances? So
yeah, maybe it was the hand of God that put her next to him for whatever reason, Hopefully for good. It was certainly memorable.
For sure.
I was curious. When we had Roger on the show, and I think he mentioned that it made it into the book, was him crashing an after concert thing, and Ralph Vaughan Williams was there, and then they started talking about the tuba concerto, and Mr. Vaughan Williams decided to send him an original copy to make sure it was correct. I mean, is that in the book as well?
Yep, that's there. Yep, that's there. As
I still am
without a license, he took his dad's car and crashed the reception.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around, just the sheer I don't want to say audacity, but way to go, Roger. I mean, it's like,
right?
Holy cow! And here we are. I mean, Doug. I mean, when we heard that, I mean, I was blown away, and I'm certainly glad it's in the book.
Well, and that was one of the questions I really wanted to ask you, Steve. I thank you so much for including the little analysis of the first movement of the Vaughan Williams Concerto. I mean, it's a personal story. I don't know what it was like for you when you learned that concerto, but I sat down with my teacher, and this would have been in the early 1980s, so quite a while ago, when the concerto was not even 30 years old, right? And the first thing we did, grab your pencil and make all these changes. Tommy Johnson said, change that slur, break that slur, breathe here, take that note out, change this note. And I said, okay. And he had played it when he was 18 with the Pasadena Symphony, and there were no questions asked because you didn't ask Mr. Johnson the questions. And since then, I have tried to pass that information on to my students. Like, okay, change this, cut this, change that note, and they all say, no. What do you know? I have this Oxford University edition here, even the corrected, 1986 edition. And so I'm going with the ink.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I'm not
okay.
questioning the Queen's.
So thank you. Thank you for finally setting the record straight. I did not know. See, it's in the book that Roger tried to contact Oxford University and say, no, there are errors in the printed part.
That's right.
And Oxford was not interested.
That's right.
So
3 times he contacted them. Thrice he contacted them and thrice denied. The last one ending.
Exactly.
This is, this is the final exchange in this discourse. And just like,
I know.
Whoa. See, okay. So,
well,
but it's there as you see, as you see, which I just want to mention for everybody listening, if you want to have your own copy of the entire score plus all 3 movements put into a readable part in Vaughan Williams' handwriting, that's available on my website. You can go there and buy that. So www.uppermusic.com. So
that's a very valuable thing, because that score still, I think, is rental only, right?
That's right.
Correct. It is.
That's right. And this version is one that I photocopied myself from Roger's personal library. Like, I remember standing in the conservatory in Switzerland with the entire thing, just like page by page. But yeah, it is the entire Vaughan Williams concerto in manuscript, Vaughan Williams original markings, not edited by Philip Catalane. And then also in the PDF that you can get, it's the first movement, second movement, third movement. I extracted just the solo tuba part from each, part in the score, and arranged a solo tuba part only, so people can see for themselves what the differences are. So
that's brilliant. You don't expect any pushback from Oxford, do you? I mean, this will just sort of be the black market official Roger Bobo edition.
Pretty much. Exactly. Wow. It's just like, go back to the source, go back to the original, and be like, just check it out, look at it. And hey, if Oxford has a problem with it, they can come contact me, stephen.oberheu@gmail.com. Well,
I'm so happy, because I mean, this also comes up. I mean, I hate to interject this, but it comes up in the Chimboso discussion. People they look at parts and they see something that's printed in black and white, and maybe it's Verdi, and maybe it's a German edition. It'll say 4th trombone or tuba or something. And then the librarian, the conductor, everyone will assume, oh, no. It's printed right here in black and white. And thank you, Steve, for letting us know that behind all those decisions are people who don't know as much as you or Roger.
That's right. Well, hey, I mean, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that so much. And and man, I'm just glad Roger gave me the chance to tell the story. And that was one thing that we both agreed absolutely should be in there. And I was like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to put this out there for just everybody to see for themselves. And and Roger, he's one of those guys that he's talked to all the composers. He played for Stravinsky, he played for Pierre Monteux, and like all the legends, and he played for John Williams. He went to John Williams's house, he knows, it's a remarkable story. And I'm just honored, glad that he gave me the chance to tell it. And thank you guys so much for having me on to talk about it. It
needed to be told. You were also a student of Roger's, is that right?
That is correct. Yep. Yeah, I studied with Roger the first time back in 1998. I took 4 months off of school. I actually ditched on my student teaching semester, caused a bit of a rift between me and my education prof, but hey, that happens. But I was like, I'm not missing out on this. So I went and studied with him 4 months, then went back, finished my degree, then went back and studied with him for another 3 years. And it was during those 3 years that we got to know each other really well. So, and just by hanging out, just by talking.
And was that in Lausanne?
That's right.
Did I meet you there?
That was in Lausanne. Sorry?
Did I meet you there? I was there in 1999 in March.
Man, that very likely could have happened. I feel like that very likely may have happened. I was there because I arrived in Lausanne full time September of '99. So we're either then or either before then.
No, it was in the spring of '99. I just seem to remember you telling a joke about a cell phone at the dinner table, but you know, it's a long time ago.
No, the thing is with that, Doug, is that's Steve had a really, really good time in Lausanne. It sounds like
everybody did. I remember we went out
every now and then. The details are a little fuzzy, but the ones that are there are like totally clear. You know, for example, the letter that Tom Stevens wrote to Roger. You know, that's in the book. I saw that letter, but like Roger had taped it on his wall, and I read the whole thing. Like, you know, I would be up there practicing in the studio, and I read this letter, going like, "Wow," you know, like. As Roger's, you know, deciding to retire. So, Tommy Johnson, you know, like years ago, shortly after I left Lausanne, there was a website called tubanews.com. I don't know if anybody out there remembers this or not, but I was for a while a writer for that. And very briefly, I was an editor. But anyway, I wrote for that page a while, and one of those was an interview I did with Tommy Johnson while I was doing my grad studies at USC, and that one actually got that article from Tuba News actually got picked up by the LA Times and the New York Times after Tommy died, because when he passed in 2006, like that was news. I remember seeing on the CNN ticker, like, you know, Tommy Johnson passes, and but I was asked by those newspapers for those articles. But hey, I had that article, and I still have the audio of it. So I'm like, hey, I can include that in the book, and I just happened to be in a lot of, you know, surreptitious places a lot of times, and I don't know if you remember this or not, Doug, but one of the first times that I remember hanging with you was during a scoring session for American Pie 2. So,
I remember that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That was one of the first times I definitely remember hanging with you there. There was you, John Van Houten, Fred Green, and Tommy. So who were all there on this session.
Yeah, it was over at Todd. Yeah. It was at Todd AO when it was still open. Yeah. Yeah,
totally. And like you were still able to bring outsiders in onto the lot at that point. And Tommy was like, "Oh yeah, come on, see what the session's like." And I remember just like being in awe. I was just like, cool. But yeah, it was nice to get that vantage point. So
sure, yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
I can picture it every time I see the movie. You know. So
now, one thing I have a question for you. See, I consider Roger to be the greatest living teacher of brass, and I don't think you would argue with me.
No disagreement here.
So I was kind of surprised there wasn't, you know, there was no mention of his teaching at Cal Arts, and I know he taught at USC briefly. And then of course all his work in Fiesole and Lausanne, and I was hoping, or I hope maybe yet to come, you know, I know he's published his book, but I would love to see a more extensive account of his pedagogy and his aesthetics and his philosophy of teaching. Maybe that's all included in Mastering the Tuba. Maybe one was enough.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it seems like that was about all that he had in him, was that one. Because now he and I kind of disagreed on this point a little bit, because I almost distinctly remember there being plans for 3 books. You know, like he was supposed to
remember that too.
Thank you. Okay, so this is nice to be corroborated, but
yeah. Tommy Johnson said it in Masterclass. He said there were going to be 3 volumes.
Okay. Yep. I remember this as well. Roger disagrees with me on this point. He was like, no, there's just that one, and it's only ever going to be that one. We expanded it a little bit, but that was about it. So, and I'm like, okay, all right. But I distinctly remember Volume 3 was about being your own teacher, and and I completely agree with you. I think that that's something that I would love to know more of his words about. And and you know what? I'm going to be completely frank here. I was hoping to get more of that into this book, but then Roger had his stroke, and then I'm like, okay, I need to finish this now. So,
Okay.
so, anyhow, so yeah, you know, and then to your point, you know, his teaching at Cal Arts, USC, yep, obviously oversights, you know, but yeah, there are plans, you know, just so people know, to do an expanded further edition. You know, Roger's life is still going. You know, he's plans to keep going, and I think also as more people read this book, I think more stories will come to the front, will come out. And to my mind, that's only going to make any future edition of this book, you know, only more interesting.
It just hit me that I think Roger's totally right, and maybe we can expound a little bit on it about being your own teacher.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've looked at Roger's life and what he's done, and he was one of the guys that really inspired me to try different stuff. To, you know, just because it's not for the tuba doesn't mean you can't play it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? That
Mm-hmm.
type of thing. And not only that, but also thinking about the fact that we're not tethered to this whole idea that, and I think that's one thing that Roger really showed a lot, especially, I mean, this was back in the 80s, early 80s for me, when it was going, you know what, why not?
Yeah.
You know, why not do this? I mean, do you guys think that it was because of him that, you know, a lot of us are sitting there reevaluating now and saying, well, I am my best teacher. You know what I mean?
Yep.
As far as that's concerned?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I completely agree. And yeah, and, you know, and for me, you know, again, you know, one of the phrases that didn't make it into the book but should have, one thing that Roger said all the time was, get out of the tuba ghetto, you know, like, you know, broaden yourself musically, like, you know, do stuff that's like, you know, outside of the tuba's normal, you know, realm. So yeah, exactly that. And that's what, and honestly, that's kind of what helped me develop what I consider now my current style, if you will. You know, I did, you know, for people who don't know where I am, where I came from, I did the whole classical tuba thing for years. You know, I actually got to perform the Vaughan Williams with a symphony orchestra in North Dakota. You know, not everybody gets to do that. I subbed with orchestras, the whole classical thing. Well, then, as I got more into teaching, I got into teaching middle school band, much like, you know, kind of my hero, Tommy Johnson. I was like, hey, he did it. Why don't I do that? So, but then musically, absolutely, this idea of like, you know, becoming your own teacher and, yeah, and, you know, getting out of the tuba ghetto. So for me, developing my style now, because I have this brass band now in Winnipeg called the Dirty Catfish Brass Band. So, and again, we're on all the streaming services, Spotify, YouTube, anything. Look us up, check us out. But yeah, we have 2 albums done. We're coming up with our 3rd that's getting ready to release in the next few months. The 3rd being all original. But anyhow, for me, you know, who had grown up playing B-flat tuba, then went C and F the whole time, I went back to B-flat sousaphone, which now I have like this horrible fingering dyslexia when I play. But this is now, you know, to me, this is my voice, and the approach that I sort of take is like, you know, I'm heavily influenced by things like punk rock, progressive rock, indie rock, you know, funk, all that sort of stuff. Things way outside of the classical realm. So I sort of bring those approaches and those attitudes towards how I play my sousaphone now. So, and then kind of putting it all together into what it is now. And absolutely, you know, 100%, you know, due to Roger and his encouragement, you know, along these lines.
Doug, how about you, man?
Well, what I was going to say was a couple things, but I agree. Get out of the tuba ghetto. You know, Roger really showed us that there are no limits, and that was really, he just, as I said, kept breaking down one barrier after another until he'd kind of done it all. I remember at one point, I think he said he wanted to pursue a career as a soloist. And so in 1 year, he said he did 30 concerto appearances. and he had exhausted the market. Like that was it.
Mm-hmm.
It was not a growth industry, you know, but that is so like Roger to just get an idea, do it, and do it all in a year.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I did that. Okay, what's next? But I remember Tommy talking about, with just absolute awe, these performances that Roger would give in Los Angeles. He'd give a recital and it would be an event. 400 people would come.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, which is just unimaginable. Having just given a recital, I know that I was lucky to get 1/10 of that amount of people.
Yeah.
But Roger had this mystique and has this charisma. I mean, I felt it walking down the halls with him in Lausanne. Every head would turn and stare, and they would just stare as he processed down the hallway. And he has this incredible rare gift.
Absolutely.
And I think but also one of the things that really comes through in your book is honestly his humility, because there's this whole kind of undercurrent of mysticism and almost a belief in miracles or signs from elsewhere. And I think that was a very sort of, how should I say, it was very apparent to me that he's tuned into a higher consciousness, if I may be so bold.
I agree completely. Yeah. And I think that's something that not a lot of people know if they're thinking just, tuba hero, but it's absolutely there. There's absolutely a very, very deep, very humble, very thoughtful, and like you said, tuned into a higher consciousness for sure.
Mm-hmm. I also know that when he was a young man, I have this confirmed from several sources that many, many young ladies would come to the concerts just to see Roger.
Oh yeah. Not surprised.
Steve,
I'm not surprised.
Do you have any plans for any other books?
Any other books? At this point,
are you gonna write some more?
Well, at this point, no more books. I'm looking forward mostly to getting back to writing music. So, which if you guys check on my website, also there's a couple of pieces that have been published by Potenza, but now they're now owned by a new company in Minnesota now. But composing music is my first love. That's the thing I want to get back to doing most of. So there's works for tuba ensemble, tuba quartet, brass quintet, all manner of brass instrument. I'm hoping to recombinate and reorchestrate and edit pieces for different instrument combinations. I have most of an orchestral piece finished that I'm hoping to complete later this year. With a
definite labor of love there, my friend.
Absolutely. Well, I just happen to be in a wonderful city that has an orchestra with a new music festival. So, and they like their local composers, and my brass band now, we're starting to get some recognition nationally. We're hoping this next recording will, resonate a little broader, a little further. But again, this one coming up is all original material. So, I'd say a good 2/3 of the album, it's stuff that I wrote or, originally conceived, maybe even more, but I mean, whatever. Yeah. I'm just looking forward to getting back to composing music and using the tuba in roles, getting out of the tuba ghetto, let's use it creatively. Let's put some electronics with it. I've been learning more about sequencing and electronic instruments, things like that, and playing more guitar and singing more. So
good for you. Good for you.
We'll see. Yeah. But as for other books, we'll give it a while. We'll see how this one does.
Okay. Yeah. Because I know it's an incredible I won't say Sisyphean task because you actually completed it, but it must be like moving a mountain to finish a book. So congratulations.
So you know what? It was tough at times, you know, not gonna lie, but
Yeah.
but no, it was no, there was definitely, you know, a very well, and yeah, you know, from Roger, there are definitely a couple of his original writings in there, you know, that I
Yes.
think, you know, they were more of his insistence, you know, but I
Sure.
think they pretty accurately reflect his story, you know, like you know, what it was like, you know, like just how crazy Topanga got, just how lonely it was in Japan at times, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you know, that's
Exactly. Well, having a slight acquaintance with the great Roger Bobo, I have to say you captured his character, and you've done all of us a great service. This book
Absolutely.
needed to be
you.
written. It goes up on the shelf with the Arnold Jacobs book and the Harvey Phillips book, and
Oh my goodness.
we have a great debt of gratitude to you
Oh my
for writing
gosh.
this book.
Oh
So
my
thank you.
goodness. You guys,
Yeah.
thank you.
No, Steve, absolutely. This needed to be done, and you know, I'm with Doug on this. I can't thank you enough for your time and your effort on this. This is a story that needs to be told and needs to be documented. Um, and I think you've done a really good job on it, man.
Thank you, John.
My last question for you, Steve, before we wrap this up today is, I mean, you live with this material for a while. What's your favorite story in the book?
My personal favorite story. Oh boy. Oh gosh. Uh,
All of them.
I was gonna say the discography. No, no. I gotta say, I think it's the Vaughan Williams chapter. I mean, in a way, I mean, if you put
It doesn't get more amazing than
sorry,
that, I think.
if you take the end of the first chapter and put that together with the Vaughan Williams chapter, like the one where he meets Dr. Vaughan Williams, and then put that together where he, has this whole, the issues with, so put those two together, then that's kind of it. Yeah, the whole part where it's just, Ursula Vaughan Williams just goes, Ralph, this young man would like to know about the concerto. And they're just like, it's like you can just picture like the needle, like, like scratching off the record. But that's
Awesome.
so that's a pretty good one. but yeah, 15 years old, and like, okay, for me, like, I did not even approach Los Angeles freeways until I was well into my 20s. I can't imagine what it was like as a 15-year-old without a license, but like fearless, it's just like that's pretty amazing. I think that's it. Go,
Steve, do us a favor, would
Williams.
you hold the book up for me? Doug, hold your copy of the book up so everybody gets to see it out there.
Here you go. Oh,
So-
I guess one other thing I should mention about the book is that one of the complaints I get frequently is that the shipping to the United States is very high. I completely understand. It's high in Canada too. With that in mind, there are a few copies available at the Horn Guys in Pasadena. So I left 6 copies with Steve Ferguson there. Also, I'm talking with another potential distributor in the U.S. So hopefully there will be a solution for that soon. So, but anyway, that's it. It's available now. And then,
But luckily for
and then upperhay.music.
Go ahead, Doug.
So if you want to get the copy of the Vaughan Williams manuscript, upperhaymusic.com.
Yeah. And stop, you get what you pay for. So just pay the shipping costs, and get the book. So,
Well, I think we're going to wrap it up here. Steve, we can't thank you enough
Goodness.
for your time and effort today and your talent.
Thank you,
An
Doug,
absolutely
John.
Great conversation. Doug, do you have anything to finish us off, man?
no, just thank you. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for writing the book.
Such a
And
pleasure.
I know it's going to have a long and valuable history for all of us.
Awesome. Thank you so
Well,
much.
we want
I'm
to
so
thank
glad
everybody
you
out there
enjoyed
for
it.
watching this week. And We're going to be back next week with some more new content. Hopefully, it'll be some live music next week. And because we really don't know yet, do we, Doug?
No, but
so,
it'll
happen.
It's going to be beautiful.
Like it always happens. So thanks a lot, everybody, for watching. We're going to take you out with a little bit of music and a great photo of Roger. And everybody have a wonderful afternoon, evening, or morning. And we'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Peace out, everybody.
Bye.
Has played with the Los Angeles Philharmonic Orchestra for 20 years, and he is a superb musician. His latest album is called Gravity is Light Today. Would you welcome Roger Bobo?
My accompanist, Gloria Chain.